I'm Ashton from Block West Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Cowen Show we have Harrison Hines, the CEO and co-founder of Fleek. Harrison, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Let's just dive straight into it. I'd love to start off our conversation by just hearing how you got into blockchain and started Fleek, and why you think it's necessary.
Sure. So I joined the space back in 2016. Before that, I was involved with the whole equity crowdfunding Jobs Act movement. It didn't take off the way I thought it would due to some of the regulatory, just way the Jobs Act was written and the restrictions around it. But then when I saw Ethereum launch, the first use case that was taking off was crowdfunding and ICOs. And so I just had this sort of like aha moment that that's what felt like what crowdfunding always should have been. So I was living in New York at the time. I seeked out Joe Lubin because he was kind of the only guy backing Ethereum-based businesses at the time. Started a project out of Consensus that was called Token Foundry back in the last bull run, like 2017 ICO days. Thought could bring some standards to the whole token sale, token kind of ICO side of the industry. Did that for like 2 years. Then decided I wasn't as interested in the decentralizing Wall Street narrative as I was in the decentralizing the web narrative. So that's where I'd left in like 2018 to start Fleek and really focus on, trying to help really decentralize the web.
Amazing, and I agree. Even in Web3, a lot of these applications, they're still using like Web2 infrastructure, and it's not really the true decentralized Web3. And I'm sure you have some insights into that. So from there, let's dive into what exactly is Fleek and the suite of products that your team's working with.
Yeah, so Fleek today, most people know us as being like the Web3 hosting platform. So a lot of the dApps or just Web3 apps, whatever smart contract platform they're building on, they all still need to host their applications somewhere. So what Fleek provides is just a really seamless developer experience to host those Web3 apps, but leveraging like Web3 storage protocols under the hood to do so. So IPFS is definitely the most popular one, but other protocols as well, Filecoin, Arweave, we have support being added to the platform soon, things like that. That's what the current product is today. A lot of hosting, storage related, seamless kind of developer experiences and flows packaged in like familiar like products or use cases. That's really what we're trying to focus on is there's this whole new class of infrastructure, of decentralized infrastructure, but how do we kind of package it and present it to developers in a way where they can sort of, be used to how they build or the different pieces of infrastructure they use, but get the benefits of this new decentralized infrastructure under the hood. And we just try to make abstract and make that as seamless as possible.
That's a great point, Harrison, and it's sort of alluding to the note that I made just before this, and is that a lot of the internet is like hosted on Amazon. They almost host most of the internet applications, including the blockchain ones as well. And we're not really going to get to the full Web3 experience until we move to a product like Fleek, which actually is more of a decentralized cloud hosting. Because even if you have a decentralized product and it's hosted on Amazon, they can shut it off. So it's not really decentralized. And I've seen these cloud hosting providers, whether it's for just file storage or more importantly application storage and database and platforms. Although these alternatives are there, maybe it's just not that it's hard to compete with Amazon, or it's not as a intuitive experience and as good of experience because obviously Amazon is a huge company. Where do you see the industry at right now with actually trying to move all these applications onto actual Web3 infrastructure?
Yeah, I would say, definitely the decentralization aspects and, more censorship resistant aspects matter to a portion of the dev community. But to the much larger, developer audience, performance and seamless developer experience is still, I would say, superior, or more important or more prioritized. And, but I think you're starting to see a shift on a number of fronts. The first is, I think people are taking censorship a lot more seriously. You have things like the Twitter files being released, just a lot of the nonsense going on in the media these days where people are becoming less trusting of legacy institutions or corporations. And so I do think the idea of building on a corporate cloud is going to seem silly by the end of this decade, because it's just, why would you take that extra risk of some corporate board or in some jurisdiction with a government that maybe doesn't like your country or whatever, to be able to have so much control when there's alternatives like what's being built in the Web3 space for decentralized web infrastructure that is less opinionated and jurisdictionless and sort of censorship resistant. But at the same time, I do think that with exactly what we're building with Fleek Network, today the current Fleek platform is very much what I call these Web 2.5 businesses. They're providing Web3 services, but they're built on a Web 2 stack. We wanted to move more in the Web3 direction, and so that's why we about a year ago came up with the plan to build Fleek Network as sort of this decentralized application delivery network or edge network, what have you. When you talk about how do you compete against AWS or Cloudflare, these big companies, we take a lot of inspiration from the Netlifys and Vercels of the world. And the reason for that is because they are the ones who pioneered this concept of an application delivery network. They took the concept of a content delivery network where you're trying to put content on the edge close to the end users requesting it, so you have as low latency and as fast load times as possible to provide the experience modern application or kids expect for the apps they use. Then they were like, well, why don't we just put compute or some other functionality for the app on the edge to make it extremely performant? If this works for content, why can't this work for other things? And that's where you saw a move from these monolithic structures of EC2 more to modern apps that are more like Jamstack serverless functions and stuff like that. And so, but the way that Netlify and Vercel were able to compete with the legacy platforms is really on the developer experience side of things. They made such a seamless just workflow and developer CI/CD pipeline that met the needs of a modern developer way better than some complex AWS or type platform where it's got all these options and all these products, and the developer doesn't know how to use or what to use any of them for. They just want to link their GitHub, click a few buttons, deploy a site, have all the other ancillary infrastructure or things they need based on use cases they want. And that's how they were able to basically compete and become a big player in an already crowded and with big incumbents in the cloud market. So if you think about Netlify and Vercel, those are just proprietary application delivery networks or edge networks. They just set up 20 to 30 locations in different geographies, but they manage it all themselves. And that's actually their largest cost, is managing all that infrastructure, which is why they don't go above 20 to 30 locations. So with Fleek Network, we're essentially just a decentralized version of a Netlify or Vercel's application delivery network, instead of us controlling all the infrastructure, we just have crypto economic incentives that will encourage groups all over the world. So we should be able to have many more locations, but also the cost and performance should exceed these existing application delivery networks, because we'll be able to have much more coverage, much closer to the user, and because we don't have the cost of the network to maintain and like the human cost related to IT, we do think that we'll be able to like, and also these cloud platforms and, you know, Cloudflare, they're marking up the cost of these services like bandwidth significantly. So I do think that we'll be able to compete on a cost and performance perspective compared to these Web 2 existing solutions. But you really, and what we're focused on with the new Fleek platform we're building, is we really need to make sure the experience is as good, if not better, than the current developer experience, because ultimately that will get them to switch. If Fleek is a better developer experience, period, than existing platforms, whether the infrastructure underneath is decentralized or not, I think that will be one of the main factors. But yeah, I do think the trend is going in this direction. People are understanding the importance of decentralized infrastructure, but definitely, you know, we know that, like, first and foremost, we have to make sure it's a good experience. And that's why we focus so much on leveraging these different underlying infrastructure protocols, but packaging them in things that developers are already familiar with. So you don't need that, you know, new education or understanding or tokens of how to pay for these things. We could just abstract that all away. You use this new infrastructure, it's more resilient, it's more trustworthy, it's probably more cost effective, potentially as or better performing. And so yeah, we think those are definitely good merits to win on, but developer experience is definitely, I think, the key to all of this.
I completely agree, and I've personally been into, you know, the back end of Amazon Web Services, and you almost need a 4-year degree just to figure out what's going on, because there are 2,000 functions that go into so much detail, and there's probably a lot of stuff that you don't use. So, you know, just making a seamless experience, you know, and I agree. It's not just, you know, well, it's decentralized, but it's harder to use, so we'll do it anyway. You know, it's like whatever works best for the business. The fact that it's decentralized will then be like a byproduct of the fact that it's a better experience because of the way of the distribution of it and the economics. And I'm excited to see how that plays out. And from what I'm understanding, you know, Fleek is continuing evolution, and the network part is something that you're still growing. So where exactly is this at right now?
So we just announced Fleek Network and released the current draft of the white paper last Thursday. You can run nodes. You can see on the Fleek.network homepage how to do so. But the plan is, over the coming months, we'll spin up a DevNet, a testnet, an incentivized testnet, and then probably ending with a mainnet launch, probably around maybe May or June of 2023. The cool part is, you know, the current Fleek platform, once that launches, all traffic will just immediately switch over and use Fleek Network from Cloudflare, what we currently use. And that's what we're hoping to convince a lot of other Web3 projects, because every single Web3 project pretty much today uses Cloudflare. Yeah. Anyone, you know, using IPFS or Arweave or any of the storage ones, anyone who's hosting, anyone using ENS, you know, Cloudflare is powering a lot, and it's becoming like a big central point of failure for the industry, because they're able to, you know, it's like they're the ones delivering all the digital content all over the world. They serve 10% of all internet traffic. And so, yeah, so that's our goal. Everyone needs this layer. But yes, it's like we've been building it for a year. But yeah, over the next 6 months, we'll continue to build and get it to like mainnet in around June of 2023. But like, just to clarify, we have Fleek Network. So that's like the underlying infrastructure layer. That's the edge network. Initial focus really on content acceleration. Mm-hmm. With the trends we're seeing in blockchain, and it's all about kind of like specialization and unbundling. So instead of these monolithic chains that we've seen up until now, you know, now what we're seeing, especially on like the decentralized web infrastructure side of things, much like the current web, there's going to be a lot of specialization. Like, if you want to build the best database product or best, you know, serverless function compute product, you probably don't want to carry a bunch of storage around, or, you know, like you. So that's where I think, like with Fleek Network, we're very much focused on just like this edge, fast, starting with content delivery. But as we've seen with Netlify and Vercel, we could add other edge services that make sense to put on the edge, like some light compute, like edge handlers or serverless functions or stuff like that. But we've never, the cool thing about Fleek Network is we don't compete with anybody, with any protocol. Storage protocols need us or data protocols need us because they don't factor in performant delivery to their incentive models. Mm-hmm. So they're stuck needing to rely on something like Cloudflare to performantly get it to their application and end users. Mm-hmm. That's where Fleek Network comes in. But for these smart contract platforms, every user, every project using any smart contract platform, they need hosting and they need performant delivery. Doesn't matter if you're DeFi, NFTs, whatever, you need to host your apps and your UI somewhere, and you need to performantly serve it to users. Otherwise, they're not going to stand to use your app if it loads slow. And especially if you have content, that's really like video content, especially, and with the growing decentralized social trends, like that's really where content delivery networks thrive. Is, you know, all this, you know, Netflix, YouTube, TikTok, all those videos, you store them once, but you're serving them around the world millions or billions of times. And that's really where these CDN, these content delivery networks, like become really valuable. Mm-hmm. So that's the infrastructure layer. Then the Fleek platform, you could think of as kind of like the distribution layer. Because I think the mistake you've seen a lot of protocols make is they just focus on the protocol and they do not focus on the go-to-market and the distribution. And they're getting absolutely smoked by protocols like Polygon, who do focus on those things.
Definitely.
So similarly, with Fleek, the Fleek platform is sort of our distribution, much like Vercel and Netlify's UIs are just distribution channels for their own proprietary application delivery networks. Same thing with Fleek, but Fleek, the platform, is not a distribution channel specific to Fleek Network. We are actually just a distribution channel for all Web3 protocols. That's why, you know, we surface things like IPFS, Filecoin, Arweave, Akash, all these different decentralized web infrastructure protocols, because that's what a developer wants in terms of an experience. They don't want to go use 6 different interfaces for their storage and then their compute. They want that Vercel-like experience where everything they have is in one seamless, unified interface. They could access all these different infrastructure pieces they need for their app stack. And just, that's it. Deploy it seamlessly. So that's really where the Fleek platform comes in. And we just feel if we support other protocols as well, that's just going to bring more customers who will ultimately then use Fleek Network, because if they're using, you know, they're building their app there, they're most likely going to host it there or, you know, accelerate their content there. So that's sort of our strategy. But it is unique because it's like, yeah, like we're more like a wallet in the sense that we're an interface sitting on top of other infrastructure rather than a traditional Web2 developer platform where it's like we're just trying to push you to use our infrastructure so we can monetize. So it's a much more open, it's a much more collaborative, and it's a much, I think, better approach. But it's definitely new, and there's definitely challenges that come with that. But it'll be fun. Definitely,
and great insights, Harrison. And I agree. It's great to, you know, I've spoken with quite a few of the other sort of cloud storage and decentralized web networks, and it's great to work together, you know, rather than compete, because it's a huge movement to move the infrastructure of the internet into Web3, truly Web3, and there's still a lot to go. You know, it's like less than decimals of a percent of applications even the Web3 ones that aren't really hosted on full Web3 infrastructure yet. So I'm really looking forward to it. We don't have a lot of time left, Harrison, but for people that want to learn more about like the infrastructure and just how Fleek Network is going to work and the roadmap to the launch as well, what is the best way for them to learn more and to stay involved?
Yeah, I would say Twitter for the Fleek Network, it's just Fleek_net. Discord, we will definitely be putting out a lot of content in the coming weeks and months leading up to network launch about, all different participants, people interested in running nodes. You could run nodes in the future at home on your computer as long as you have a good internet connection and upload speed. You could be a good cache provider for Fleek Network. There are some nodes in the network that require more sophisticated infrastructure, but it is cool that anyone could participate. And then for projects or potential consumers of bandwidth, whether you're an app or an NFT project or marketplace or whatever, or even just a Web2 company who just wants to save money on bandwidth or have better performance. Yeah, I would say Twitter and Discord are probably best, but people are also free to, I would say also check out the current Fleek platform, because that's for Fleek Network. But if you're just a developer, you want to get started, hosting a site on IPFS, Fleek.xyz is the new platform that will start beta next week. But in the meantime, we have the legacy platform, Fleek.co, which people could go and deploy a site or do whatever they want today.
Great. Well, yeah, the best time to get started is right now. And I will leave those links for the platform and the socials you mentioned as well in the description box below. I appreciate you taking the time, Harrison. Good luck with the growth of Fleek, and I'm excited for the Fleek Network launch. And let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.